I'm trying to help Mike Long get signed down right now.
I've got my stand-up desk.
Going. All right. Looks like you got your hair done too.
Hello, this is Mike Long.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Jason.
All right, it is 1:31 p.m. So I will go ahead and call to order the called teleconference State Board of Education meeting for April the 11th, 2022. I'd like to call a roll to establish quorum. If you are present, if you will respond, I'm going to go down the line and call by congressional district. Just let me know if you're in attendance. Mr. Mike Long. Mr. Mike Long. Mr. Frank Griffin.
Present.
Ms. Helen Rice.
Present.
Ms. Lisa Kennemore.
Present.
Mr. Kenneth Mason.
Present. Hey, this is Mike Long. I'm sorry, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Long. We have you marked. Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Mr. Royal.
Present.
Mr. Downey, I'm here. Ms. Zoller.
Present.
Mr. DeJarnett. Mr. DeJarnett.
Jason, if people aren't talking presently, ask them to mute.
Everyone, if you could please mute your phone if you're not either for right now saying, yes, I'm here. We have a lot of background noise. Please mute your phones. Thank you. Once again, Mr. Stan DeJarnett. Mr. Scott Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Matt Donaldson.
Here.
Mr. Leonte Benton. Mr. Leonte Benton. Ms. Finna Petty.
Present.
Circling back around, Mr. Stan DeJarnett. Mr. Stan DeJarnett. Mr. Leonte Benton. Mr. Leonte Benton. All right. We have 12 board members accounted for. We have a quorum. Absent are Dr. Stan Jarnett and Mr. Leonte Benton. If anyone sees a number pop on the line, please let me know. We will find out if that is one of them and add them so that they can vote. The purpose of today's called board meeting is for one action item that was initially tabled at our last board meeting. It is item number PFEA, which is the charter school renewal of the Museum School of Avondale Estates. The action item had a motion, which was seconded, and then there was an amendment proposed, which was seconded and voted on. And then there was a request and a motion to table the item. The amendment and the second were pulled, and the original action item and the second were pulled. And there was a vote on the tabling, and that passed. The reason for the tabling was at the request of Mr. Donaldson and the rest of the board to receive a legal opinion from the Attorney General's office regarding charter school laws. A request was made to the Attorney General's office, and board members received confidential attorney-client privilege communication from the Attorney General's office regarding the opinion related to charter school laws. And I want to remind everyone the communication we received is attorney-client privilege. So what is back for us today, there is a recommended action item, which is the original action item, and I will read this. The recommended action item is, it is recommended that the State Board of Education grant a charter to the Museum School of Avondale Estates, a grades K through 8 local charter school approved by the DeKalb County Board of Education for a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2025. Would anyone like to make a motion as such to accept the action item?
Motion to approve by Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. That's a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Dr. DeJarnett, thank you. And Dr. DeJarnett, I'm marking you present.
Yes.
Is Mr. Benton here?
He's
Mr. Benton.
texting us trying to get in, but he's having trouble apparently.
Okay. Everyone, I'd like to pause the meeting just for a brief moment to see if Mr. Benton can get in so we can have a unanimous 14 people that are able to vote before we begin discussion. So if you all will bear with me, we'll try to get Mr. Benton in, and then I will entertain any discussion if anyone has it. I'm seeing the text now.
Who else is on the line? Do we know?
So could we tell
Do
him
we
just
know?
to call in? Call in number.
I'm sorry?
Do we have anybody?
Yes, who else is on the line that's not a member of the State Board of Education?
Again, Superintendent Woods is here.
Oh,
All right.
And
Thank you,
Stacy
Superintendent.
Seaver Drake.
Thank you, Stacy.
Tiffany Taylor.
Thank you, Tiffany. Anyone else?
And Julie James.
Thank you, Julie.
so we're not showing anyone from DeKalb or museum?
No, and I made it aware. I mean, this was publicly noticed, and I also reached out to individuals from both sides that we were having this meeting. I also extended an invitation to Mr. Whitlock from the Charter Advisory Committee. Helen, I believe that you had reached out to him. I had given him the wrong time initially and let him know that we were going to be meeting at 1:30 today.
Is he able to jump on? Do you know?
do not know if you're able to extend the invitation. I just got an email from him. He's out of his meeting.
Okay, I can try to send him the call-in number. Let's see.
It appears there may be some representatives from the museum school that are on, but they're simply watching. If there's a need to have discussion or questions to reach out to them, we can find a way to get them involved in the discussion.
All right,
Mr. Benton, have you been able to make it on yet?
Yep, I'm here, Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Benton. Okay. All right.
Hold
Circling
on one
back
minute,
around.
Jason.
What's
Let
that?
me send- I'm trying to send Matt, like I meant Mark, like you asked me, this call-in number. So I'm just about to complete. Let's see. Okay, let's see if he can jump on.
Okay. We'll circle back to him. Helen, if anyone has any questions they want to ask, I appreciate if he's able to get on. We have a motion for the action item as presented by Mr. Donaldson, and there was a second by Dr. DeJarnett. So at this time, is there any discussion related to this action item?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Long.
Did we ever
Can
find
motion be
out?
taken, please?
Helen, can you hold on 1 second? I think Mr. Long had spoken up. Mr. Long?
Mr. Chairman, could we have it read again, please?
Absolutely. It is recommended that the State Board of Education grant a charter to the Museum School of Avondale Estates, a grades K through 8 local charter school approved by the DeKalb County Board of Education for a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2025. And that was moved on and it was seconded. And we're now up for discussion, and that is the item that we'll be voting on, barring any amendments. Is there any further discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Did we ever,
Go ahead, Ms. Rice.
Mr. Chairman, did we ever find out why 3 instead of 5? And why the recommendation, I know that usually, and maybe Mark has had a chance to go on, but when the Charter Advisory Committee, that's an advisory committee, and it states that the advisory committee is the state board shall receive and give due consideration to the suggestions. And in his letter to you, Jason, it just said that they approved the 3-year charter that came from DeKalb. Now, my understanding is that and maybe Mark, are you on?
I'm on.
Well,
Everyone, for clarification, Helen, if I can interject here, what Helen is referring to is the Charter Advisory Committee, and Mr. Mark Whitlock, thank you for hopping on. Mark is the chairman of that board. And so, Helen, if you'll continue on, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Whitlock.
Yes, he is the chairman of the advisory board, and he also sent you a letter, Jason. I think it was March the 11th or something, after they had a meeting. The Charter Advisory Committee met with DeKalb. Well, DeKalb generally, anytime a system sends that they have approved a charter, the Charter Advisory Committee goes and meets. And to my understanding, they presented that they had approved a 3-year contract, and the Charter Advisory Committee voted to approve the 3-year contract based on the evidence that they had, that their scores were right and they were all above state the state approved scores, and that they merited a scholarship. I guess my question, is that not correct, Mark?
That's correct. We had a request to approve a 3-year charter. We were certainly informed that the original request from the school had been for 5 years. We didn't have information about why the change was made to 3-year, but certainly the school merited a charter in our opinion, so we just recommended that the 3-year charter be approved.
Okay. So in saying that, then we found out at our board meeting, Jason, that over a year and a half, I think Tiffany said that they had been trying to work with some agreements here, and there was nothing resolved there. So and then I think you reached out at the last meeting and we asked, why 3 and not 5? We still haven't gotten a true, clear picture. It's not understanding to me. I don't understand why, when this school has done all the things that you check off on the charter system that says they're right and merit a charter and merit having a 5-year charter, why they were denied that. And I think, Jason, you spoke up before and said, I feel like there has been a denial of 5 years. And so there's such a gray area and such an area here that says that this school was trying, that museum was trying to reach out to DeKalb. They were trying to come to some collaboration. That was not met. A year and a half almost went by. And I'm just feeling like there's something amiss, and we can't get an idea of why. And yet all their scores appear to be in the checkbox for A's to say they deserve a 5-year charter. So it's not clear to me, and I think they've done their homework, and what we're looking at this system, not anybody else's system, and in the public interest, there's some things that aren't answered. I don't know if any other board member feels like I do, but I just think that this is important for kids. And because we can't get all the information, I don't know if an approval is in the right area. At first, I thought it was, and then maybe we could have the Charter Advisory Committee go back and look in 6 months and see if they could advise that maybe for a 5-year. But there's just too many missing links right now. Somebody needs to help me.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. Any further discussion?
Hey, Mr. Downey, this is Mike Royal.
Mr. Royal.
I'll just mention one thing that we haven't already talked about in our state meetings, because we received the letter from our Attorney General's office, the guidance and questions that we asked. I did have additional conversation with Attorney General's office for this, and where we get into, I know some of our board members are worried about precedent, and are we where it says in the section complies with rules, regulations, blah, 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 and is in the public interest. That is a big and, where words matter. But I think when we're looking at this as precedents, yes, things we do have future precedents on other schools, other things, but also though, we have to, and I believe we have to and have a duty to look at the museum charter standing on its own and as an individual charter school, not lumped in with everybody else. And I believe there are extenuating circumstances well and above the just the rules, the other things that we go through, the procedures that we go through. I believe there are things in this and dealing with the museum charter that issues with authorizer. I mean, I won't rehash everything we hashed out in the last meeting, but that do give rise to the ability for us to act in a manner and it not be a rubber stamp for other schools to go to the charter commission and do that. Because when we look at this, I've been through a bunch of these. I've never seen one like this, and hopefully we don't see one again like this in the future. But as far as precedence goes, I believe there are things that are in the public good to potentially deny this petition as it stands and is presented before us, looking at it on an individual basis on its own merit as the museum charter, and that we have to vote, and I have to vote based on what's before us, not the charter system as a whole.
And Chairman, can I say this? And Mark, Sonny, I think it's a charter advisory committee. And what they say, that's not necessarily the last word. And the state board does have the last word. And that's why I guess I agree with what Mike said. We just need some more clarity on a lot of things. And it's been a long time, a year and a half of trying to get this thing back when they've done a lot of everything that needs to be done. So
I'll also let everyone know that I've received word from representatives from both the museum school and DeKalb schools that they are available. They don't have a link to be able to communicate, but they said that they are, both parties are available if anyone has any questions directed at them that were not already asked in the previous board meeting. We can try to loop them in if we need to. But I did want to let everyone know that. So we're still in discussion. Again, there's been a motion and a second on the action item. Is there any further discussion regarding this?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Kennemore.
I agree with Mr. Royal, and I've also looked through the contract several times, and with the renewal changing from 5 years to 3 years for the museum school, I don't see any explanation why. As Helen said, there's a gray area in there. I don't understand it. If it was a probationary term, I could understand, but as a renewal, I don't. Their CCRPI scores are higher than DeKalb and the state of Georgia, and they have done a phenomenal job in the education of the students that are enrolled there. And I just don't see, I don't see me voting in favor of this. I just don't. Looking through everything, I just need further explanation as to why the change from 5 to 3 years. I would like to hear that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Matt Donaldson.
Mr. Donaldson.
I think a few people have told us how they feel, and we've gotten our advice from legal counsel, and I think our decision is clear here. So I would suggest we go ahead and vote.
Thank you,
Matt,
Mr.
it's clear to you, but it might not be to others, and they might want some discussion.
Sure, but you exercise your vote in that fashion.
Mr. Donaldson, are you calling the question?
I call the question. Move to call the question.
Is there a second on the move to call the question?
I second it.
And that's Ms. Zoller. We're voting
Yes.
on calling the question and closing discussion. Is everyone clear what we're voting on here? We're simply voting on whether or not to close discussion so that we then will vote on the action item. I will do the roll call. Mr. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Ms. Rice. Ms. Rice.
I said, okay. I said yes.
Ms. Kennemore.
Yes.
Mr. Mason.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Royal.
Yes.
Mr. Downey, yes. Ms. Zoller.
Yes.
Mr. DeJarnett.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson.
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Ms. Petty. Ms. Petty. Ms. Petty. All right. Unable to reach Ms. Petty, but 13 to, I guess, an abstention. So we have closed discussion.
Betty's muted. You want to record her vote?
What's that?
Ms. Petty is muted.
Okay.
She said for logged out. Yeah, hour. Yes, she said yes. Finish
She
it,
said
yes.
yes. Okay. All right. So the question has been called. We are now voting on the action item. Is everyone clear what we are voting on at this point? The action item itself. I will do a roll call.
Would you read
I will.
again?
The action item itself, what we're voting on is, it is recommended that the State Board of Education grant a charter to the Museum School of Avondale Estates, a grades K through 8 local charter school approved by the DeKalb County Board of Education for a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2025. That is what we are about to vote on, and I'm doing a roll call. Discussion has been closed, so I'm going to do a roll call vote. Mr. Long.
No.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Ms. Rice.
No.
Ms. Kennemore.
No.
Mr. Mason.
No.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Royal.
No.
Mr. Downey. I vote no. Ms. Zoller.
Yes.
Dr. DeJarnett.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
No.
Mr. Donaldson.
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
No.
Ms. Petty.
Yes.
Eight no, 6 yes. Motion fails. This time, business has been concluded. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Ms. Kennemore?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Royal?
Yes.
Mr. Downey, I vote yes. Ms. Zoller?
Yes.
Dr. DeJarnett?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Ms. Petty?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great week.